All right. Hello and welcome from Level Zero to IT Support Lead. Before we get started, just so you guys can kind of keep questions to the end, there is actually, of course, thanks to Google. If you have questions, you don't necessarily need to remember or try to write them down. Go ahead and go there, submit your questions there, and at the end, we'll go ahead and I'll just answer those questions in order, and then we'll take questions from the crowd. Please remember, use the catch box for questions. I will gladly throw it. I'm quite skilled at it. So, hello and welcome from Level Zero to IT Support Lead. Before I get started, I want to let everyone know I will be releasing my slides on my website and to the conference organizers. There's no need to rush to take notes. There aren't actually many notes in my slides, so you guys can really just concentrate on what I'm talking about. However, I have lots of speaker notes. I would rather everyone listen to the journey and review my notes later. Worst case scenario is my talk will actually help you. And if you like, we can grab a drink later and chat about it. Fun fact, my first title in IT actually was Level Zero Support Technician. I didn't know I can get any lower than that. So who am I and why am I up here blabbing today? So I'm a father, husband, IT nerd. I really like the Big Bang Theory. You'll see in my slides, I promise you that. As you can see, I love LA sports ball, especially the Dodgers doing really well this season, but it's only a third of this, or what, 3/4 of the season is done, so I need them to get to done, just not the regular season doesn't really count for anything. I'm also the IT support lead at Thumbtack. I'm a board member of MacBrain, and for those who don't know about MacBrain, you can always go to macbrain.org and check us out. You can always email me also at jason@jasonkmiller.com, and you can always find me on the Twitters at jasonkmiller. So this is where I work. Some people may be wondering what Thumbtack is. It's the place that pays my bills. Quite awesome. You go there, you do some stuff, they give you money. It's amazing. But seriously, Thumbtack is a place to get stuff done. Whether you're looking for a bartender, highly recommend those. DJ, French lessons, or house cleaning, you can get it kind of all done there. So, why are we here? We're going to hang out at Nerd Camp for a week. We're going to see friends who we haven't seen since the last PSU. Seriously, we're here because not everyone is going to know how to program in Bash, Ruby, and in Python all at the same time. Because getting to know Git, Vim, or any open source tool may not be the easiest thing to do. IT has a wealth of positions that aren't always related to being technical, and people should know you don't have to be an encyclopedia or a one-person IT team to advance or do better in your career in IT. So, is this talk for you? How do you know if you should stay or if you should go? So, for those individuals who are struggling with any of the following questions, I told you I love the Big Bang Theory. How to excel as a Mac admin? Do I know enough? Am I technical enough? Where, how, what should I focus / train on? Or what am I doing with my career? This is for you. If that is not what you're interested in, which is A-okay, I won't be upset if you decide to go start at Legends a little earlier, if you want some creamery before everybody goes to the creamery because there's going to be a long line later, or if you actually want to listen to that panel talk. This is a funny episode, by the way. So, down the rabbit hole we go. So I'm going to start you guys where I started out my career and where actually everything all got started for me. And funny enough, it was at CCSF. And for those who don't know what that is, that's City College of San Francisco. And it's actually the first U.S. city to offer free tuition for its residents. So if you ever decide to come out that way, it's quite fun. Knowledge is power. But I started my journey with some basic courses, some things, just common knowledge for folks. And that means like Computer Tech 101, basically teaching basic etiquette. I did firewall courses, of course, DNS. I took a lot of hacking courses, actually. Pretty fun. Windows Server courses, of course. But, of course, at any school or any location that you go to, there's never a course on how to support Macs. Or let me show you how to get into the inner workings of this and how to support it in an organization. which then I was sitting there thinking while I'm in these classes on my Mac, how am I supposed to support Macs in an organization when I'm actually not learning in school how to get that information? And I know what some of you guys are thinking. I'm not going back to school. Folks with degrees maybe not be as smart as you think, or college is a waste of time and money. But I do have to say, don't knock it till you try it. So if you haven't tried it, just don't knock it just yet. It could be valuable. But I know there's a great debate whether school or education is actually worth it. And for me, it was, but it depends on you, and it depends on what you want out of an education. There needs to be a purpose for you going to school, and that could be to remove a career blocker, obtaining the skill that you can't get currently on your job, or even exposure just to a new topic. A reason why we're even here today at this conference is getting exposure to things that we haven't seen before. I would argue that the same educational skills you would achieve by attending a college and or university could be attained via work, via experience, and or say even just learning to code. But I also could argue the other way, and that college and or universities could teach you things that experience and programming can't. And for those who want to entertain this conversation, once again, I'll be at Legends later tonight. So, why did I just put just a URL up here? And you don't have to go to this. It's just, you can if you want to. It's not that great of a site as far as how it looks. But the website, the information is for a guy named Sam, of course, and it has lots of examples and potential coursework. And Sam is a professor at CCSF, and all Sam taught was information security courses. And he was one of the individuals who actually changed my life. And lucky for me, he also taught a intern and work experience course. Why not work for free? Long hours, crap pay, all for the chance to get to work in the field of my choice. Ding, ding, it sounds like a winner. Yes! Can't get any better than that. So I signed up for Sam's free labor course. Internship and work experience course. And you didn't automatically get placed into an internship. It was a process. You applied, he interviewed you, he talked to his potential people who he thought would be matched up best with your potential skill set. And this time while you're waiting for this, you're still doing your regular courses and all your other work. But while waiting for my placement, I had a brilliant idea. I thought it would be amazing to quit my job at Starbucks. I was an assistant manager at the time. While going to school, I decided that to quit Starbucks and then take a job as a restaurant manager instead, because I thought, managing a restaurant would be easier, less time, right? You're never at a restaurant forever. You're only there for 40 hours, you get to go home. All while still trying to do my internship that I got, luckily, into. Well, in my head, I said, oh, this should be easy. It was anything but easy. Many times I had to leave my restaurant early to head to the internship. I had to leave my internship to go to deal with the restaurant, or I just had to plain go to class. Needless to say, I was tired. And I don't recommend anybody else do that. It's not smart. I do highly encourage you to get work-life balance if possible, or work-school balance. So don't do what I did. So while I was hopping from job to internship to school, one of the technicians where I got my internship at, his name was Sean. And he saw that I was killing myself going back and forth, hopping from place to place. I was always tired, maybe not giving the best effort all of the time. And finally, he pulled me aside. We're sitting in the car because we had a campus, so you had to drive everywhere. And he decided to have a real conversation with me. And Sean was from Oakland, maybe not the right side of Oakland for people who've been to Oakland. And he pulled me aside, put me in the car and said, dude, if you really want to be in IT, leave that restaurant shit behind. Commit to this. No half days, full days here as often as possible. Immerse yourself in IT, and the hard work, it will pay off. So I was sitting there and I'm thinking, yeah, it's easy for you to say. You're full-time, I'm an intern, I'm not making the salary that you're making, and you want me to quit my job to come do this full time and figure out the other stuff. I was like, my wife's not going to go for that. There's bills to be paid. There's things to be taken care of. But after a conversation with her, that's actually what I did. I quit the restaurant, went back to Starbucks, part-time barista, about 20 hours a week is what I said I would be willing to do. And then I said also, I want to be a full-time intern. And I started doing that full-time, and it was fun. So, a little misleading. My first title wasn't actually Level 0 Support Specialist, but I guess it was IT intern. But it's not necessarily where it wasn't full-time, so every intern is just an intern at the end of the day. You're just like, oh, intern, come here, go do this. And that's kind of how it was. And so my first internship was at a place called Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and they actually paid me to work on computers. A guy who sat in a classroom, passed some classes, maybe well, maybe not so well. And they said, hey, go fix this guy's problem. So I was like, sure, why not? And for those who are wondering kind of what LB&L is, and that's how I'll call it moving forward, it's a Department of Energy lab. Anybody know the Energy Star? Everybody knows the Energy Star? You're welcome. That was LBL. So that's the kind of work that they do on a regular basis, actually. So the first stop in my career taught me some of the basics. The same basics that I learned at CCSF, actually. The basics of DNS, imaging, the basic etiquette, a key one in tech. It's, to me, one of the more important ones and ones that we should use more often, but we probably don't. But that was a very key one. And at LBL, I would image close to 30 to 40 machines a day. And I mean, that's all I did all day long. And I'm talking about Windows Pixie booting. I would be imaging Mac machines, imaging Linux. Whenever an image needed to be applied, my name was all over that. Go find Jason. He got you right there. And I would just sit on a pile of computers at a workbench and image my life away. Another intern task was dealing with users really wanted to talk to, or the annoying problems people didn't want to tackle. And while some of these problems were easy, not too bad, was more the user, some of them were challenging, and they required me to communicate and work with other teams in order to solve my problem. But while imaging got old pretty quick, I had a chance to hang out with some graybeards. Who knows who graybeards are? Anybody ever meet any graybeards during their time? For those who haven't, graybeards are those, they're the old school Unix and Linux guys who don't care about your feelings whatsoever. Whatsoever. And I happen to work in Berkeley, so they have one or two of those guys floating around. And I got my first taste of programming. And if you can automate all of the things, automate all of the things. And it was literally like something out of the Matrix for me. I was just sitting there like, these numbers, they're just coming down on the screen, and the computers are doing this and they're doing that. It was truly something amazing. It was really invigorating. And during my first few months at LBL, I started to have thoughts. Thoughts are, I don't know anything. I have no clue what I'm doing. I got all this education. I've done all this stuff. I've taken all these courses. I am lost. And then I would sit there, I would solve a problem and say, oh, I know more than I think. Not that bad. Yeah, doing good. And another thought, and the thought that I think everyone has all the time, is how can I level up, both my Mac and Windows side of the house? And then that's when I realized the only person who can stop you from doing what you want is you. After being an intern at LBL, I quickly came to the realization of how bad I really wanted to be in IT. How I love to tinker, automate, and improve processes. At LBL, my internship was a 6-month contract, 6 months. And I knew in those 6 months I had 3 options. I could find a different career, I could extend my internship contract, or I could really push them to give me a job and to hire me. Obviously, I didn't find a different career. Standing here, I think. But working for free, or nearly for free, is awesome. but it doesn't pay any of the bills. And my wife is not about to have any of that happen. So the only option that I saw was to push for a job. So I pushed, and I pushed in trusting in my skill set, advocating through my work, that I did deserve to get hired. I deserve to be a full-time tech, and that I can be great. And that meant taking on topics I had no clue about. Just don't know flat about. Take it. Understand. Learn how to Google. Learn how to problem solve. That also meant practicing good ticket etiquette. Many times we in IT hate tickets, but tickets are a good way to actually quantify what you're doing from time to time to show people who pay bills why it's important to have this team around. Not all the time, but a good chunk of the time. And also just being a nice human being. Luckily for me, that's exactly what happened. After 5 months, they ended my internship, and that's when I got hired. This is when I got the extinguished title of Level 0 IT Support Specialist. Couldn't believe that. That was pretty amazing. And I couldn't have got this position without a few things happening. Advocating for myself, believing in my skill set, hard work, trusting key people to guide me along this path, and again, being a nice human being. And I want to focus on my last point. I know it sounds weird, but I think everyone in tech, especially in this room, understands what I mean by being a nice human being. But being nice doesn't mean that you have to be a yes person or even never say no person. It doesn't mean that you can't be direct in your communication or that you can't hold people accountable. It just means treat others as you would treat yourself. And also a quick reminder, whether you decide to take courses for a few semesters in a row, or whether you decide to Google how to Python, only you know your skill set, your worth, and your determination to succeed. So after you advocate for yourself, you should let someone else do it for you. And which leads me to my next lovely topic, people. The people in our lives are the single most important group or thing that can help you grow, fail, and pick you up after you've failed. And I was lucky enough to meet lots of people, and I lumped them into kind of 3 generic categories of people that you need to have in your career as you're going along. You definitely need some technical folks. You need some folks who are just technical. You need non-technical folks. Navigating corporate America is very interesting, and these non-technical folks will help you get there. And then you need somebody who's done both. You need somebody who's been a hybrid, a technical and a non-technical person. And I think technical is pretty self-explanatory, but just for clarity's sake, I describe a technical person as someone who is in the weeds kind of every day. They deal with configurations and just the details of a system or systems. Non-technical people are your managers, people who are kind of forward-thinking individuals. Could also be folks who have a personal investment in seeing you do better. So that could be family and friends as well. And then there's a kind of a hybrid of the both, which, they spent some time in the weeds. They have the ability to build not just for the moment, but also thinking years down the line, and also have a little bit of manager or management-like experience. So this is LBL. This is my view for 4 years. It's pretty crazy, when there wasn't fog, of course. But knowing, talking, and learning from technical people is one of the keys to a successful career. And while I'm not expecting everyone to know every detail of how something works in order to troubleshoot it or understand why something happens, technical folks will try their best to explain to you and or teach you the details necessary to advance in your career. And whether these are coworkers, friends, people you've met at meetups and or at conferences, that's probably a good place to meet a lot of these folks. At LBL, I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of these technical folks. I spent a lot of time with the cybersecurity team at LBL. Probably too much, wishing I was in cybersecurity probably at one point in time while I was there. But they had a gray beard. Man, he was a great guy. Rode me tough, but great guy. And he really opened up my eyes. He took me under his wing. He really showed me the fun part of working on, say, Macs, because he was a Mac guy as well. So you would think some graybeards are all Linux and Unix. They're not. They enjoy the Macs just as much as we do. And this same team of people, these same graybeards that I was working with, also showed me the world of open source security monitoring. They actually managed to monitor a 100 gigabit scientific network, all using open source tools. This is the same group that actually showed me also that LBL actually has no firewall around its network. And they use all open source tools to monitor it and to maintain it and to auto block and stop attacks against the network. So needless to say, I definitely got schooled and schooled pretty bad, quite frequently, but it was well worth the journey and the ride. And there was two other individuals who probably shaped my career and drove me nuts, but it was good. Vincent Martinez and Ben Souza. Two of my good buddies now. We still chat, we still talk, but at the time it was definitely some heated conversations. And it was a love and hate relationship between the three of us, definitely during our time. Vincent and Ben, they were Windows admins. They knew Windows like the back of their hand. I could go to them and say, this key is weird, and they would be able to tell me registry keys and do all types of wild stuff that I had not seen just yet. But the only problem is that while they were great at Windows, they were terrible at Macs. Terrible. And so when I started to be kind of the Mac person at the lab, everyone wanted to say, let's treat Mac like we treat the Windows devices. All the things that we do on Windows, we should be able to do on Mac. And that's when I was like, I don't know about that. Let's actually take this back and let's look at some other stuff. We constantly had battles. We constantly went back and forth with things. But at the end of the day, my learnings from them and learning the technical ropes of how they did everything, they basically showed me, they set up a good framework for me about Windows styles policies that I would want to do on the Mac if I could. And Vincent also taught me my first valuable lesson when dealing with people who are more technical than yourself. And I see lots of these people, especially in San Francisco. There's lots of people smarter than me. I'd bet everybody in this room is probably smarter than me. So this is how you kind of deal with some of these technical folks. With Vincent, many times I let my frustration get the best of me. My advice to everyone in the room is when you're upset with a coworker for whatever reason, do three of the following things. A, assume positive intent. I think that's very key in everything that you do. Assume positive intent. Confront the person is another key thing that you need to do. And remove emotions from your decision process. And positive intent, basically what that means is you continually choose to assume that the people you work with have good intentions, that they are operating to the best of their ability, not your ability, their ability, and that they are trying. And many times I didn't assume positive intent with Vincent. I didn't. Too often I assumed he was trying to do what was best for him and him only, which wasn't true, but for some strange reason my thought process wouldn't let that happen. Confront the person. And this isn't meant to be a negative comment or a negative thing. Too many times we take confrontation as we're scared of it, run away from it, don't do it. But confrontation is how you get better. Confrontation is how you open up a dialogue between you and the conflicted person. It makes a simple miscommunication that has occurred a simple, hey, can we talk about this thing? I want to clear up these 3 points. And I promise you that will go a long way. Nothing's worse than being mad at the guy over here and he has no clue that I'm mad at him. How is he going to know to fix it with me if I don't talk to him? And lastly, remove your emotions. We're all passionate about tech. That's why we're here at this conference. That's why we do what we do every single day. But sometimes when we're too close to a product or process, our emotions can cause us to make poor decisions. And even though you may be fighting to keep Jamf, to move to Monkey, to adopt Chef or Puppet, never put your emotions into the decisions, whether the product will hurt or help you. You'll get nowhere by adding in that extra sauce. And there's another set of people who help me technically. Like I said earlier, I am a member of MacBrain, board member of MacBrain. And outside of work, I ran into some crazy people who had the idea to start a nonprofit to help the Mac community. Uh, One was Dana. One is this gentleman sitting here, Andrew. Stephanie, his wife, and a crazy guy named Arik. And MacBrain truly, it changed my ability to understand how to troubleshoot problems. It brought together a group of people who were selfless. They were willing to say, I had this problem 2 years ago. I Googled, I talked to I don't know how many people. I struggled for 6 months. I wrote some code. That way you don't have to struggle for 6 months. Check this out. And they'll walk you through the lines of their code, so therefore you don't have to struggle. I now had a community of people who were willing and wanting to share knowledge. When I had a problem, I was no longer alone in my little bubble. And because of MacBrain, I was able to meet more people in the community. And so the next upcoming list isn't an exhaustive list of technical people, but just some folks who I had the pleasure of bugging every time I had a problem, or a lot of times when I had a problem. And I had a feeling they felt like the next slide's image when talking to me for the first time about my technical problems, because to me, they were the end of the world. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this. But to them, it probably wasn't. And so Andrew is one of those people who I constantly rely on. Even to this day, we still talk quite frequently about some crazy stuff. Mike Dodge, not here at the conference today, one of the Facebook guys, but I got a chance to work with him a lot. Bryson, sitting right in the back, actually. You can wave, Bryson. Say hi. See? I heard you, baby. I chat with him. We had a chat about Python literally 2 days ago on Slack as I'm flying in the air, and he writing some code and saying, try this out and do this. Still helping me to this day. Some guy named West, you'll see him presenting later in the conference. Crazy guy. Sam Keeley, when I first started out as well, he helped me quite a bit in just going over some stuff. And you'll see Nick McSpadden. He's a gem. That guy's a gem. Very smart, crazy presentations, good presenter, but super smart. And these guys were some of the first guys who really said, hey, you're not as dumb as you think. Let me show you to the right side. And so it made me feel great that somebody was willing to do that. And I know that, and while I know they didn't feel this way, and well, maybe they did, but they were patient with me. They helped me grow and learn. For example, Mike Dodge actually invited me over to his house for quite a few Wednesdays, and all we did was work on code, Monkey, Chef, and we just did fun things along those lines just to help me grow. But these technical resources took the time out to mentor someone who was new to the game. And I suggest everyone here find a mentor who is technically savvy. And a group of people, if you want, a single person, whoever it is, just somebody who can lean on who is technically savvy. They'll be able to push you beyond your comfort zone technically. And then once they do that, thank them and then pay it forward. That was the one deal that Mike made with me, is that if he's going to take his Wednesdays out to mentor me, I need to take some time out to do it for other people. And that's why I do it, and I do it constantly with one particular coworker. I probably do it too often, kind of my fave, but it's a good stuff. But during the same time period, another thing happened related to technical people. I had the phone call. And this one conversation really does stand out to me. It definitely shaped my thought process, and it shaped who I ended up becoming. I remember it because it was hot as hell in Berkeley. And I thought I had a bright idea of, let's go out and stand in the sun and have a long phone conversation with Andrew. And the conversation was, is LBL the right place for me? And the reason why this conversation took place is I was struggling as a MacAdmin within my group. I was the only MacAdmin. Everybody else was Windows. And I'm just in my own little silo dealing with all this stuff. All the Mac problems come to me. All the Mac hardware comes to me. All the Mac design comes to me. It was pretty much like a one-stop shop. And because I didn't have extensive experience with this platform, I started to doubt whether I could seriously do the position. If maybe I should do Windows administration because I knew that so much better. And then Andrew reminded me that many of the MacAdmins across the world are frequently the only ones and are in the exact same position as me. And that having friends like him, having MacBrained, if you're on Facebook, the IT think tank group, Slack, MacAdmins wasn't as hip as it was today, so that really wasn't around during that time period. But there's plenty of resources, he said, and when you're struggling, don't hesitate to reach out because everyone's been in my shoes. He said the community would help. And this phone call changed my viewpoint on technical problems. I can no longer be afraid of technical problems that I hadn't seen before. There are enough resources to help guide me to my goal of being technically savvy. And conversations are key. Talk with your friends, your colleagues. You never know what life-changing advice they may have to offer. And not all the advice can be technical. Some of it can be non-technical, or all of it can be technical. But after that conversation, I also knew if I was going to navigate the waters of explaining, no, we shouldn't stand up this server, rolling out this new policy without testing it is a bad idea, no more YOLO, I would need to get some help from some of my non-technical friends in my life. So non-technical skills are good. I would actually even argue that they're even more important than technical skills. And I say this because if you're unable to walk a user through a problem, explain to your boss why you need funding or why you need money for this thing or for that thing, or if you can't even help the CEO, then your soft skills are lacking. You may be singing the soft kitty song at your desk, or you could be singing it out the door because you won't be advancing anytime soon. Be a nice human being. But my first two supervisors, they taught me that, and they were Mark and Gail. And they retired, I think within 6 months of me actually getting hired, so it kind of broke my heart. But they were great, great people who taught me just how to be a good person and how to treat other individuals that you're working with and who you're helping to troubleshoot their problems. Not to mention that Computer Tech 101 course laid some nice foundational work, reaffirmed some basic manners, a lot of those same basic manners I was taught as a child, but it all comes back full circle. But some folks may be introverts. I get that. And not everybody is as loud as outspoken probably as I. Or they only nerd out to themselves. And that's okay. I'm not saying that you need to be a flaming ball of energy. But what I am saying is that know your audience. Know when to be kind of the smart-ass IT person and when you need to be the nice IT person. Separate the two and know when to say what. But nothing's worse than being called into your boss's office because a user complained about you, or you didn't explain the answer to their problem so it isn't actually solved, or worst off, you claim to have solved the problem and you actually didn't do anything. You close a ticket or you do whatever and you just kind of, oh, this is fine, good, I'm gonna leave, bye, somebody else's problem. Don't let it be someone else's problem. Don't let it escalate to that next thing. Soft skills are something you need hands down because no company is different. You know, everyone switches jobs, you switch companies, but I promise you, your next company has difficult users. It has easy users. There's drama users. You have power users. You have budget problems no matter where you go. Budget is an issue. Let's do it cheaper, better, faster. There are security concerns no matter where you go. InfoSec is always going to tell you we can do this better. But being able to speak to someone like a human, like you would speak to your significant other, to your parents, or even your kids, it's important. Communication is key to anything you do, both professionally and personally. Some folks are able to marry both the technical and the non-technical. And these folks have brought balance to the force. People who have balance normally complete technical roles at some point in time during their career and some non-technical roles. And kind of some of these people at LBL and during my time there, Tammy Campbell, Richard Gregory, who is still my mentor to this day, who I still have interesting conversations with. Tom Bridge, who did the monkey talk just during the last session, and Rich Troughton, who pretty much documents the entire internet. And they were able to kind of help drive my career in both directions and let you know when you're kind of leading astray. They'll ask you uncomfortable questions or make you think about a question differently. And they're there to show you that there's more than one way to solve a problem you're facing. Mentors are kind of like your parents, you know? They're awesome, they're fun, they support you, they nurture, they ask questions you need to hear, but don't want to hear. And my mentor decided to propose a question that I wasn't ready for. The worst 10 words at this time for me, but when I look back, it was probably the best thing he could have ever done for me. What do you want to be when you grow up? Those are the scariest words I have heard. And I wasn't ready. I definitely wasn't ready. And, you know, it's a scary thing, and probably the scariest question I've ever encountered in my entire career thus far, whether it's IT related or not IT related. And even when I talk to my team about this now, they look at me with like the GTFO face, like, don't talk to me, get out of here, go, don't say anything else. And it's scary because at the time I was 28, and I'm thinking, I am grown. What are you talking about? What do I want to be when I grow up? Thinking, you know, what in the world are you talking about? I am in a career path. I am grown up. I am doing the thing that I would like to do. But I knew what he meant, kind of. So I gave him the initial answer of, I want to be a system administrator, or I want to be an endpoint engineer. It's like the hot thing to say. And he said, that's nice, but that's something you could obtain if you want it in 5 years or under. And I was like, damn. And he goes, that's not what you want to be when you grow up. He goes, try again. And needless to say, this conversation of what do you want to be when you grow up, it went on for 3 years. Every time we met, every single week, an hour, easily a week, of what do you want to be when you grow up? And us going back and forth. And every time I came with, this is what I be when I grow up, I got the lovely response of, that's nice, do better. You could do that in 10 or 15 years. And when I was thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, think about where you are when you want to retire. When you're 65 or when you're 70, you know, if you decide to work that long, you know. When you're sitting at your desk for those last few years, where's that desk? What's that position? Where are you in your life? That's what my mentor meant. He also meant, once I identified what I wanted to do, start researching what it takes to get that position. Whether that's skill set, salary, certifications, if you need certifications. Anything that gets me started towards my final destination. Now, 3 years, now it took me 3 years to take, and that may seem like a very long time, and it did feel like an eternity. But this isn't something you figure out overnight. So this is not something that you're gonna go back later tonight after you've had, you know, some ice cream, you've had a burger, 3 or 4 beers, and you're like, I know what I wanna be. I promise you, that's not what you wanna be. Take some time to seriously think about this. Self-reflect. And once you know, go after it with the vigor that you've never seen before. So at this time, I wasn't ready for that conversation, but that conversation did allow me to focus, to believe in my skill sets again, and to start down the path of obtaining skills to advance my career. And with these new skills I would obtain, I would correlate them to my current position and also would provide a different perspective of things that I would do day to day. So what really did happen? Lots of soul searching. I did have lots of sleepless nights during these 3 years, just kind of thinking about this question and thinking about what I really wanted to do. I had some great nights, some sleepless nights, lots of conversations with my wife. Your partners in crime, they're there to help you. Use them. talk to them about that. They will provide an insight because they have the outside perspective into what you're doing. And so they have no clue. So they'll give you the, if you're thinking crazy or not crazy conversation. Conversation with a lot of my graybeards. Definitely talking about what they do, how they do it, why they do it, what their love is for it. More conversations with my wife. Lots of conversations with my mentor. Lots of LinkedIn searches. Looking at positions I would want. The qualifications that were required even to get some of those positions. Looking at certifications that people acquired for those positions as well. And something awesome happened after that. Surprisingly, the stress and anxiety of finding out that I'm a 28-year-old kid who had no clue what he wanted to be when he grows up, even though I thought I was grown, was starting to become less scary and less intimidating. And after learning the skills, job titles, positions, potential salaries that I wanted, I began to start to make a plan to obtain those goals. I started to feel relief in the conversations with my mentor. No longer was I stressed or dreading every single Wednesday at 10 o'clock, that lovely hour conversation of what I want to be when I grow up. I was dreading the topic of the day when we met to talk about me actually being an adult. So the plan of action became get a bachelor's degree, learn some type of programming language, begin tinkering with open source security tools, and obtain an InfoSec certification. And so I started to put forward a plan of action with my mentor, dates, timestamps, events. I would say definitely write stuff down. Don't do it digitally, because I promise you can just Command Q a screen and then that thing goes away. Put it actually on a piece of paper and stick it somewhere where you can see it. And that's when my mentor said words I couldn't believe were coming out of his mouth, because we were knee deep in our one-on-ones and we were knee deep in kind of getting to a better place. He said, bye, peace, see you. And I was like, WTF. Now, while those weren't his exact words, he did tell me the style of IT that I talk about, that I dream about, that I'm passionate about, isn't within my reach at LBL. And said, and while he would love for me to stay and grow here and just be a part of the LBL culture and the LBL environment, I would have to adjust either some of my expectations or even change my role in IT and do something else. And while I would love to have stayed at LBL, I knew it was time for me to go. And another crazy piece of advice that he gave me, which I dreaded hearing as well, is don't make it about the money, make it about the experience. And I get it. We all have bills we have to pay. We all have obligations. We're all here taking time out of our days, and we all have to make that back up somehow, some way. But he said, understand, just because a job pays less or more than what I'm currently making, the next and the best step of my career is to go. And while it may be a minor step back in pay, that I would make that all back up both financially and in experience in no time. And that brings me to my next point. Don't kind of persecute me for this, but a love for your job goes further than a love of money. So just know that if money is your primary reason for doing whatever you do, find something you really love, and I promise you, you'll make everything work. When you enjoy getting up and going to work and doing that one thing, I promise you, work gets easier, work gets better. And so finally, I said, cool, I'm gone, I'm gonna do this. So I start interviewing. And I was down to 2 companies. Obviously, I decided to go work for a particular company, but I had 2 offers out there, and I had to make the best choice for me. So that's when I ended up at Thumbtack. And it was a bittersweet day when I had to pack my desk. Lots of hours went into that desk, or that standing desk, and that chair sometimes. But that job actually helped launch my career. So it was very personal to me. It was very an emotional decision when deciding to leave. I just couldn't get up and just go. It established the basics. It exposed me to all of you, to the Mac world. And now it was like that thing was a thing of the past. I had to leave all that behind. And I was moving on to a new adventure, which was scary because I was a single contributor before. And at my new role at Thumbtack, I'm supposed to lead an IT support organization and be involved and be the guy who is just, who works with every department to process and improve. And so when I first started out at Thumbtack, I was a lead support specialist. Now, what does that mean? To this day, I don't know. Well, I do know, but I don't know. But I know when I came to Thumbtack, I was charged with the support of multiple of things. And this is the part kind of where I tell you titles don't matter. When you're at a small company, everyone does everything. As long as you're supporting the company and the team, you're doing the right thing. And, all of you in the room, your jobs are what? Help desk, systems, you're a network admin, you're also InfoSec. You're all of that, all for your company. And don't think that just because you focus on one aspect, say you're a client platform engineer, that is security. When help desk, something breaks, that is help desk. You do network related things. But let's be real, titles do matter. And, but learning how to manage and set the expectations of a title is more important. And needless to say, I had all the things to do now, which included supporting a few applications, to say the least. And so some of the technologies I had to support out of the gate, most of them I had no support or no clue about or never had to deal with in my career. So I had to learn all this stuff, not all. What is that? Five out of 6 I had no clue about. So I travel a ton. We have multiple sites, and I'm on an airplane quite frequently. Zoom, I've never had to deal with Zoom before. Jamf, I have had experience with, luckily. So that was like, all right, cool, I can do that in my sleep. Okta, never used it before. I've been to their offices. Cool, nice product, sure, let's do it. AWS, I've been wanting to get my hands on AWS, but never could at LBL. So I was like, cool, new technologies, new things, new experiences. The reason why I left LBL, new experiences, new things to try to move myself forward. So setting up and managing expectations, it's key. It's key in what you do. It's key in how you advance your career. And when you start at any new organization, managing expectations is really your primary job, actually. Everyone has high expectations because they choose you over someone else. And people think you're going to save the world, or maybe not the world, but at least their world from burning. So I had a few projects thrown on my plate to accomplish within my first 90 days at the company. And when I was at LBL, for those who work in probably EDU and government, know that the pace and the scale at which EDU and government move isn't the pace and the scale at which the private sector moves. And there's an expectation in the private sector really to truly get stuff done. And not that the government and EDU, that we don't get stuff done, but 90 days, I was like, that's kind of tough. Because I had to work on a project of onboarding for HR, and that was from the director of IT and the director of HR. I had to secure and set up laptops using Jamf, and those are very hot topics during my interview process and when I started, and improve the security just of our entire organization as a whole when it comes to laptops. And the VP of Eng, who is my boss's boss, deemed that as important. So therefore, when my VP says we need to get this done, I think I need to get that done. And then also establish a ticketing system, as ours was, it was incomplete. We had it, but it was pretty non-existent. So just setting and managing expectations from the VP to the director of IT to the director of HR, that was fun. All people who could make my life a living hell if they really, really wanted to. And of course, your pay till the job is done, So it's like I could have a lot of long nights. And I had high expectations placed on me. And I personally, I hate to lose. So how did I manage? So when I started at Thumbtack, as we call it the day one experience, my experience was taking an office tour, sitting on a couch to onboard with IT, and it took about 2 to 3 hours for that onboarding session with IT. And then during that same session, I did IT orientation. I had to also complete my HR paperwork, and then I was getting pulled out of the orientation to meet with HR and be introduced as a new guy. So needless to say, I understood why that needed to be revamped. And so that led me to my first project, the first checkbox. HR. Fun people, actually. Fun people when you're on the good side of it. So my boss, the director of IT, he came to me and just said, onboarding needs to be fixed. And he said, he worked with HR previously to fix the process, but it still needs some more love. So HR and I tore the entire process apart, and we tore both IT, HR, and office ops. Not just each individual portions. We tore everybody's parts apart, and we looked at it from a holistic point and said how we want it to be if we could start over with the tools that we had. We looked at all the angles. How could we automate all the things while improving efficiency of all of our teams? And that's when I realized many folks in the HR department actually do have a clue about IT, more than we probably give them credit for. And while it may seem odd to say, it really is true. HR understands our importance and the role in making us work together as in the organization. So I would say don't discount them when you get a chance to collaborate. But back to my story. As I was sitting in a meeting with the director of HR and a few others, I realized this is why I came to Thumbtack. I came because I wanted the ability to affect changes at the organizational level. I wanted the option to communicate with the leaders of the organization and help develop and advocate for the IT organization, which is why I was able to achieve our revamped experience. And because of this, the sphere of my influence expanded due to the streamlining of onboarding. And onboarding that affected that affects everybody. No matter what department you are, whether you have a great day one, greatly influences how you started a company. So every VP, every director of engineering, every engineer, every product designer, they were all affected by the changes that we made as an onboarding team. And now that we've accomplished this task, I had the lovely next task of automating our engineering build, which introduced me to another problem of asset management and working with that fun thing and still tying that into our ticketing system. So Jamf, we are a Jamf shop at Thumbtack. And that was actually the primary reason why I was recruited to come to Thumbtack. And the tool, it was bought by our previous admin, but no one really knew how to get it going and keep it going. There are scripts in there that literally just said brew and a word. It was it was pretty hilarious to say the least. But the culture in the startup is definitely a bit different than my good old government mandates. Some fun things about our deployment was enrolling devices for a certain location, which was optional for those already employed, while new people don't get that option. And depending on your location determines if you have to be enrolled at all. So it was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, let's do it. I was also tasked with the deployment of engineering laptops, and the VP said it takes 4 to 6 hours for our engineers to get a laptop set up and ready to go. And I need you to make that happen as quick as possible. He goes, shipping code on day one was a hot item. Engineers were supposed to be able to contribute code by lunch. And that's a tall order because they still had to meet with HR, tour the office, and then sit with IT. So that's when I met Patrick. And he's sitting in the back. And Patrick was on our systems team in our Salt Lake location. And Patrick the director of IT went to this systems team and said, hey, a lot of the things you guys are doing are IT related. Why don't you guys come over to IT? So during that time period, that's when I introduced Patrick to Jamf. I introduced Patrick to Bash, the command line, and I would literally say, hey, Patrick, we need to go do this. Have fun. If you need me, I'm right here. You just ping me. And he had a go-get-'em attitude. Reminded me a lot of myself, people like Andrew, people like Bryson, who literally just they hop in and they figure it out. They Google questions, whatever it is. But Patrick actually automated our engineering build and took it from a 4 to 6 hour process to now we image an engineering laptop in 20 minutes. And that is nothing, that's all based on some command line stuff that he built, that's brew installed, a bunch of other recipes all inside of there as well. That's placing down Slack, Chrome, and a few other applications, all thin imaging. Did a great job with it. And it was because of Patrick is a huge reason why we got to where we are with Jamf, to where now I can check another box saying that, hey, we were able to automate this build, we improved the security, we install all these antivirus things, it's good to go. We encrypt, we're solid. So now that we got that settled, engineering is happy, design's happy, my boss is happy, the VP is happy. I'm good. The last thing I had to do was revamp our help desk culture. For the first time in my IT career, I had a team. And what I mean by that is I had a team at LBL, yes, they were good, they were great people, but I didn't manage that team. I was not responsible for a set of individuals or their careers for that matter. And while we didn't have an actual help desk at the current time, it was still important to establish some type of presence within the organization. One of the few common complaints that we received kind of from Thumbtackers and my boss is that we didn't have SLAs, so we had nothing to hold people accountable to, or the way that I like to think about it is in reverse, is that we don't set an expectation for a user's problem when a user's problem is going to be addressed. No one responds when we enter a ticket. So did I actually really submit a ticket? Did it get lost in the neither? Where is it? Did IT even get it? What happened? And how do we know what problems are affecting our organization? Who knows if something really is broke? Have we seen it once today? Have we seen it 25 times today? These are all important factors when dealing with multiple sites, especially when you're working across the world. The problems that one office sees greatly varies from office to office. So what did we do? Luckily for me, Patrick's team from Salt Lake came over into IT. And there are lots of talented folks. Never done IT before though. Most of them had not, but they were interested in IT. And one of those individuals, named Alex, had a lot of experience with Zendesk and our ticket managing system, because that's what we use. And so I worked with Alex to make Zendesk work, meaning auto ticket acknowledgement, implementing SLAs with the team, publishing our KPIs actually to the company. So we have a few different dashboards, we have a few different metrics that we measure, and we sent the whole link out to the whole company so they can actually hold us accountable for what we're doing. And if they see their ticket number and it's been sitting there for 2 days, they know that it's not being worked on and they can really call us out. We also, lastly, we built out Zendesk with self-help articles, kind of looking at the search history when people were searching outside of our instance to try to be kind of proactive with our support. And also got buy-in from the team on using Zendesk to manage our work. And that part is key. That's the hardest part, is to get your team to say, yes, I want to use a ticketing system. Yes, I want to track the work that I'm completing for people. Showing people the benefits of a ticketing system and how it can shape IT culture is difficult. Everyone loves doing tickets, right? Needless to say, my team CSAT, I tell you, is above 95% on average. And most weeks we're at 100%. There's very rarely where we get a complaint about someone not being a nice human being or not doing what they're supposed to do inside of our ticketing system. And they do pride themselves on 100%. They pride themselves on being responsive, on helping everyone grow to get better. So my team started to kill it and the organization actually took notice. So constant just, great job, your team's wonderful, this person did this for me, I can't believe it. Lots of, as we call it, love it's. So what does this all mean? Well, in my first 90 days, we accomplished quite a bit. And while I didn't complete a lot of the work, I wasn't the actual person hacking away at doing these things. I wasn't the technical CPE that we all hear about all the time. And I'm not in the weeds as often as I like. But I did influence my organization. I did affect change. And I was able to complete all of the goals from the VP, Director of IT, and the Director of HR, which then grants me the freedom to work on harder and larger projects. It also grants me the ability to manage things like the global support for the company, managing all the endpoints, designing roadmaps for the IT organization. So those first 90 days, they're critical. Critical because I was able to set the expectations. I was able to meet them by utilizing my team, but also by utilizing the people that I actually talk to outside. Mentorship, Andrew, Bryson, great people to get to know. And the choice that I made to move to Thumbtack from LBL was the right choice, hands down. And thanks to my mentor, he guided me in the right directions. So, and all those technical, non-technical, and hybrid folks also helped me in a part of my success in this whole adventure. So believing in my skill set and holding yourself accountable, it's key. And questions, and a quality question is, did I hold myself accountable to my own plan? So when I started this plan, it was 3 years ago or so that I started that plan of get a bachelor's degree, learn some type of programming language, begin tinkering with open source tools, and obtain an InfoSec certification. So how did I actually do on my own little grading test? I have a bachelor's degree. I did graduate with a degree in information systems, so that's a checkbox. And that's something that I really wanted, that I got value out of. I do know some type of programming language. Luckily, I know Bash. Doesn't mean that I know Bash well and that I'm an encyclopedia and a wealth of knowledge, but I know Bash. And I did begin tinkering with some open source tools. So OS Query is really great. Zentrale, Bro, for those, it's actually, Bro IDS is actually what it's called. So I was able to challenge myself and to move myself forward technically with the help of course, people in the community. So that's a check. And obtain an InfoSec certification. This is not a check. This is still on my list of things to do. But luckily for me, it's already on paper. I have my exam scheduled for the end of August, and so therefore, this should be a check by the end of August. So I've achieved 3 of my 4 goals in my 5-year plan. I've also set myself up for success. I've obtained the necessary experience my mentor discussed, also advocating and communicating, leaning on the community, the people in this room. I've been blessed to be in IT now for 7 years. And in 7 years, I went from an intern, my level 0 support specialist, to the IT support lead at Thumbtack. And now I lead a global help desk. I manage the endpoints globally for Thumbtack. And it does take hard work with the right attitude, believing in oneself, and everyone in this room can begin to answer the question of what do I want to be when I grow up, and not be afraid to answer that question. Here's the link to feedback, and thank you to listening to me ramble. Someone said testing. Someone said, did you ever have to deal with multiple priorities at once? Ones that will pull your resources from you completing the other? Yes, I have. I still deal with that to this day. We have what we call an IT roadmap internally. And right now, even say endpoint-wise, we're looking at MDM, we're looking at patch, and we're looking at, say, finishing our NHTSA enrollment, all while rolling out new wireless infrastructure and a few other things that we're kind of working on. And what that comes down to is I make sure that everybody on my team, if they are a part of the wireless infrastructure rollout and they're a part of, say, the updating Lumnitsa situation where I say, this is your priority, this is your secondary, work on this first, and then we can slowly but surely eat away at this. Meaning, I want you to dedicate an hour to 2 hours a week on this wireless stuff, and then I want you to put 30 minutes on the calendar to do this. And know that anytime anything comes up that is wireless based, I want you to, that takes the precedent no matter what's kind of going on. But I try my hardest to, every project that we have going on, a single person is not on all those projects. The only person that is on every single project are the director of IT and myself. We're the only two people who try to manage multiple things at the same time. We probably work way too often and way too much, but it helps us move forward. It helps advance our careers and the people that we work with. And it's tight, but it's hard, but it's just setting the expectation with your people. It's letting them know this is your priority. I want you to work on this. And we also remove other things from their list. So if they have wireless and Omnitsa, they do nothing else. Those are the two things you work on. I'm not going to give you 3, 4, and 5 things to do. Another one, how did you avoid metrics generating perversive incentives or having techs chase the ticket close rather than the issue resolution? How did you get your customer buy-in and buy-in that everything wasn't priority one and not everyone was a VIP? So I'm going to go with the first question first. The metrics and people kind of ticket grabbing and going through that process. That still occurs from time to time, only on certain topics. However, I tell everybody, everything you do, you can track. I'm not looking for you've closed 100 tickets in a week. I'm looking for, hey, you've closed 20 tickets, you've closed 10. That's great. What was the resolution and what sharings can you bring to the team? We have not made it where that is your number one priority. I'm not looking for the person who just does that. That's more, there are more important things than the number of tickets that you've closed. But then also, I also say, well, if you close this many tickets, what have you taught the rest of the team then? What have you brought back to the table? What Confluence articles have you written? What presentations have you given in the team meetings to then go over some of the tickets and the issues that you've closed to make sure that the rest of the team is on your same level? So when that ticket comes in, maybe we can automate the answer to that question. And then therefore, when it comes in, we give the correct support article, it closes. If they have a problem, they reopen it. And then how did we get customer buy-in that everything wasn't priority one and not everyone's a VIP? We, at Thumbtack, we have a lot of real conversations. Everyone sometimes does believe that they are the number one priority in certain locations. But we also tell them, is the network down? That's a priority one. How urgent is this? And we have a conversation with them. We say, so if you don't get this today, you're going to get fired? Are you going to be unable to work? Can you not figure out another way to do this while we try to solve your problem? And for the most part, our engineers are down to earth. They will literally say, no, it's not actually the end of the world. I'm more or less just anxious about it. And they're honest in their feedback for us when they say, no, it's not the end of the world, and they keep going. But we have a very open and honest culture for the most part, and it works, luckily. Our CEO and president, they're pretty down to earth. You can stop them at any point in time and have a conversation with them. How do you handle new team members or when you have team members leave? So we actually just hired 2 new people in the last 60 days, actually. We hired a support lead in Utah, and we hired a new systems administrator. And what we've done to onboard them properly is we have a Google Doc where we've actually built out a very detailed schedule of, this is your first 2 weeks at Thumbtack. This is what it looks like. And we don't overload them in those days. We do 2 to 3 topics per day. and then we give them a 30, 60, and 90-day goal that then is just more vague topics of, we want you to go get certified in X. We want you to go read this. We want you to come back and give a presentation to the team about this. And we want you to do these 2 projects. And we share that with the person before they even start. So therefore they have an expectation before they even come into the organization. They know their schedule for the next 2 weeks. So it's not anxiety ridden as they're going through the entire process. And when team members leave, we did have a team member leave recently, and it was very tough. But what we did to try to smooth it over a little bit is we all kept a relationship with the same team member because they left IT and went back to another organization within the company. And instead of, we did exclude them from certain conversations. They weren't in our IT group anymore. They couldn't be in our Slack channel. They didn't get notifications, alerts, and things along those lines. But what we did do is we then had a different IT notification channels for articles and different types of conversations related to IT, and we included them in that channel. And what I personally did is I told them, we still will meet every single week in a one-on-one for 30 minutes, talk about your career development and where you want to go. And I will give you whatever advice that you would like to have. This is your 30 minutes for me to help you. And because of that, he actually just left our company and got hired as a network admin. So he's working now for another company, which is heartbreaking because you hate to lose good people, but that's kind of how you deal with that. Or that's how I dealt with it. Anyone else have any questions? See, the moderator thing kind of works. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's time. You guys are all wonderful to sit there and listen to me blab over and over again. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your conference.